Oh, oh, the webinar is being recorded. And if you don't want to be recorded, then turn off your video and change your name. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, cats and dogs, children of all ages, it's me. It's Santa Claus. No, it's not. You guys know the deal. It's the kid. It's unjust. Kicking at that pizza frequency. Vibrating very fast at that pizza frequency. You guys know the deal. Pizza frequency. It means that I love talking about pizza. I love making pizza, but even more so, I love sharing pizza with people that I give a ship about. And merry, merry, and happy, happy. I hope that everybody, is doing well. You can see I'm here in someone else's house because my house doesn't look like that. Getting ready for the Yule Tide, the Yule times. 'Tis the season where we think back on this year, Bente, I like to say, and think of things that we've learned and how we've grown and how our pizza has grown as well. How has your dough improved? How has your technique improved? What has your recipe grown? How has your recipe grown? New toppings, new techniques, all the good, all that voodoo, we like to say. You guys know the deal. I'm Justin Clark Dre. Jeez, I'm going to take that off. It's warm here. It was 79 here in Venice today. 79 degrees. You guys know the deal. Oh, I am the co-host, the cohort, the co-conspirator, the clown prince, the court jester of the pizza party, self-ordained. Of course, I always say, have pizza, will party, if you know what I mean. So sing a song of a pizza man and let's make some pie tonight because we're all in the mood for a slice or three or four. And we brought our appetite today. These are our office hours. So what we do on the office hours is this is basically a couple hours where we are here to answer questions. Hopefully you had a chance to take some of our classes. Hopefully you have taken either an in-person class or or one of our on-demand classes. Look at this. Whoa! Don't look over there. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, ladies and germs. Hopefully you've had a chance to take some classes, and that's why you're coming to spend some QT with us. We started to do this because Noel, the boss man, he just got sick and tired of answering all your emails. No, I'm kidding. Right? No, here's the deal. So what we want to do is we're going to answer a bunch of questions. And usually what we do during classes is we bring everybody over and we make everybody from attendees to panelists. However, during our office hours, we don't do that. Now, what I want to encourage everybody to do, if you have questions, please use the question and answer. It's Q&A. It's right down here in the bottom or maybe over here, depending on where your screen is. It's next to the raise hand button. On mine, it says Q&A. If you just click on Q&A, I believe you are able to start asking questions. And what I'd like to do is I want to encourage everybody to use the chat to introduce themselves, talk about their doji dough. What we really love about it and what Noel and I talk about a lot is there really are no secrets in the pizza pie. A recipe does not a pizza make. It's more about technique and method and application of said technique. So if somebody asks a question, maybe you see it, feel free to kind of chat back and forth amongst yourselves within. Say, hey, I'm here. This is my favorite type of pizza. This is what I've been working with. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you may be celebrating. Remember, we're not getting into the politics of pizza or pineapple and pepperoni. We say pizza always, even pineapple, and always pizza. So, we're an all opportunity offender here at this pizza party. But yeah, so I want to encourage everybody to use the Q&A, and don't stack questions. It's better for us if you say, hey, it's me from this, I took this class, or I spent this QT with you guys. This is quality time, of course, and I had a question about this. And so what we'll try to do is, between the two of us, we'll try to answer it. And then you can just say thanks or whatever. Or if we need clarification, maybe we'll bring you on, encourage you to turn on your microphone and your video and come on down where the fire is burning and the tree. Oh, I hope that those look like tulips. I think I was good enough this year to receive some tulips under my tree. Fingers crossed. So that's the dealio. That is the dealio. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring him on. And I know everybody's saying, no, Justin, don't do it. You're so handsome and witty and clever, and you got great skin. We're sorry about your receding hairline, but that's just something you're going to have to live with. And I'm okay with that. You're saying, no, don't bring him on. Don't do it. Don't do it. But guess what? I'm here to dash your hopes. I'm here to break some hearts. So without any further ado, I think my little Christmas, I thought Noel didn't know I was going to do that. So I thought that was pretty funny. That was my little secret. So I'm going to bring him on. You guys know the deal. This is the Blue Bell of Pizzaness, bringing pepperoni and cheese and wonderful crunchy thin crust, or wonderfully, beautifully pillowy cornichoni, if that's what you like, to all people out there. Ladies and germs and ladies, cats and dogs, children of all ages, here he comes, the Christmas edition of Office Hours. Ladies and gentlemen, Noel, Mr. Slow Rise himself, Noel, Slow Rise Pizza Brohner.
Ring that bell, Justin. Ring that bell.
Ring that bell. I ring that bell. Marys, how you doing? How you living?
Justin, you've really done a nice job on your little apartment there. You bust into the next apartment over?
So we took out a wall, which is the wall including somebody else's apartment, and then we went in there while they were sleeping and danced like sugar plum fairies, and just decorated there. And then they woke up. They didn't realize it. They didn't recognize where they are, so they abandoned it. So, they'll probably be back after the nude years. And I said nude years.
Amazing, Justin. I didn't realize you had such amazing taste.
Ah, yes, and a big fireplace too. Big. I mean, that tree that I had to go out into the snow, chop that tree down, and bring it in, and it was a lot. It's like, I know you can't tell, but these are 40, 60 foot ceilings. So that tree is 300 feet tall.
Why do I believe you suddenly?
It's true. It's true. I mean, and that fire is cold.
So it's like a digital fire?
It's just what it is. We got flying staplers. Look at that.
Look at that.
Yeah, no, that's not. It's, guys, I hate to do it. It's just nothing. It's just a green screen.
Oh no! Don't do it, Justin.
This is it.
You had everybody fooled.
I know. But no. What I am excited about is the solstice. So we're going to go out here to outer space. So the dawning of Aquarius, ladies and germs. This is going to be this is the next phase in the evoludo. So I'm feeling pretty strong about what's coming on. Took my vitamins today, and feeling in the flizzo. Last night we slept well. The Saturn and Venus are going to be in Congress. This is the Aquarian incongruity. What's it called, babe? Something's happening. So I think that something happening is better than nothing happening. So I'm going to, yes, the great conjunction. And I'm not talking about, words. I'm talking about your soul. The great conjunction.
If I Google that, am I going to find anything, or are you making stuff up again?
This is it. This is Aquarius.
The great consumption?
Yeah. I heard that my cosmic checkmate has arrived. If you've been watching Queen's Gambit, which if you look at Netflix analytics and what's going on Amazon, people have been watching the Queen's Gambit. But so, yeah, it says that there are going to be a myriad of phenomenal forays.
I don't know what that means. Wait, I just Googled the great consumption. I don't know what I'm getting.
No, the great conjunction, the great consumption. That's like really bad indigestion, right? Consumption is like diarrhea. Let's not start this. Let's not do that. Let's not start this. Um, so, all right. So, ladies and germs and ladies, Noel, can you for just a few minutes tell me what is going on with you? What are you doing? We got about 5 open questions. And Vic, I appreciate you putting in the chat, but I want to encourage everybody to please use the Q&A for the questions.
There you go. And guys, if you can tell us when you post a question if you've taken our classes and which classes you've taken, because depending on which classes you've taken, we're going to answer questions differently.
Uh-oh.
If you haven't taken the class, you get one answer. If you've taken a beginner class, that would be a different answer. Intermediate, maybe a third, would you believe? And Justin, what about advanced? What do we do for advanced people?
I don't know. You're leading this. You're steering this ship.
All right.
I mean, here's the deal. If we can't figure out your question, we might bring you on. And usually at the end, if you're still hanging out with us for the last 30 minutes, we just bring everybody on. So, if you want to stick around and party with a bunch of pizza heads and dough dorks and, oven geeks, you are in the right spot.
Absolutely. So what have I been doing? Let's see. Well, I'm working on the calendar for January. Let's see. Do you know Daniele from Pizzana? I signed him up for 3 classes.
I know who he is. I've never met him, and nor have I had his pizza pie.
What?
Yeah, you've promised me on numerous occasions to take me to get to the front of the line. You're like, come with me. I'll give you a little wave. We'll get right in there. You promised to wine and dine me, and numerous times.
What are we gonna do about that?
Still waiting.
What are we gonna do about that, Justin?
That was.
Well, let me ask you a question. Are we allowed to have a social distancing dinner party at this point? Like on the beach with pizza?
Probably on the beach with pizza. We can do that. Would
you check with Libby?
Yeah, we can do on the beach. We've been doing on the beach, but I think actually now it's like 1 in 50 people have COVID. So I don't know. I don't know how.
Even the beach is dangerous, huh?
I tell you, we were walking on the beach just the other day, and I think I stepped on some kind of poisonous stinger because my foot blew up. I felt it when I thought it was maybe just a little piece of something, but for the next 2 days, my toes looked like little sausages, little Vienna bros, and started creeping up the middle of my foot. Thank goodness my wife was there to soak my foot in Epsom salt.
Wow.
And get whatever. I don't know what it was because it didn't look like anything on the beach. So,
were you shoeless?
Yeah, I like to. Well, that's the big thing. You want to ground your feet in the sand, and you want to ground it.
Not when there's syringes in Venice.
I mean, I'm scanning for syringes because I like to take I pick them up and I wash them out and I reuse them.
You're smart.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, but handsome too. I mean, you see this receding airline.
Well, me and my wife like to walk up and down the beach and pick up litter. That's what we do for fun.
Altruistic.
We just do it. We do it. We have some of those little grabbers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. See, if you've got a grabber, you can do it. Do you have like one of those? You know what's great for that? Get one of those Lowe's big buckets. Those little orange buckets.
We have a bucket. We have grabbers. We have gloves, and we have masks, of course. So we look quite the couple.
So yeah, my big yellow sunglasses though. I like to wear those too because my wife says I can't keep my fingers out of my nose and my ears and my eyes. So I got to wear the gloves and the mask and the eye things. That's the way it goes.
Good. All right. So to answer your question, I've been working on classes for 2021.
2021.
We have been handling a lot of emails from people who are taking advantage of our deep discounts for the on-demand classes. The year holiday discounts started out 25, now they're up to 50%. So a lot of people are indulging in that.
Sounds good to me.
That's good. We're having a few growing pains because we just redid the website, so we've got a few little things that aren't working as planned. So
here's the deal with that though. I think when you start not having growing pains, you got to find another place to grow.
I know we're definitely having growing pains, so it's all good. I'm not complaining. I did a big social distance photo shoot on Saturday. It's going to be coming out in one of the LA's premier magazines.
Just February.
Very exciting.
Maybe like pepperoni is in front of the nipples and stuff.
We did 3 different shoots. It was pretty amazing, actually. There were a lot of pepperonis involved. There were flying slices, Justin.
Oh gosh, sounds like a cream dream if you're asking me.
It was pretty amazing. It was also weird to be on a photo shoot and having to social distance and mask up. It was. I mean, photo shoots are weird to begin with,
Hmm.
but this was a really weird one. I'm not complaining though. First
No, no.
world problems, right?
Grateful for the opportunities to do that. So,
Absolutely.
photo shoot, huh? That sounds
It's got
pretty
to be
cool.
done. It's got to
We'll
be
keep
done.
we'll,
People,
we'll keep moms on. Maybe there's something coming up, but we don't need to talk about that. I mean,
let's
why
not.
would he do a photo shoot, ladies and germs? Not a big deal. Don't make a big deal out of it. Don't make
I'm
a
not gonna
big
make a
deal
big
out of
deal.
it. So you got Daniele, and then you got some other cats that are gonna
Yeah,
join
if you guys
us.
look on my blog, you'll see some of the people that I'm
Uh,
trying to work with. Dan from Rotsa
hmm
in
hmm
Jersey City is going to be coming on.
Dan Richter,
Yeah, Dan.
Richer.
I think his last name is pronounced Richer.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we're going to be doing some really cool advanced classes with him.
Mm-hmm.
There are there's a lot of interesting people. There's a lot of chefs out there that have been reaching out that are just fans and Instagram friends. So when somebody reaches out to me that I know and respect, I reach back out and say, "Hey, you want to do a Zoom pizza collab?" And believe it or not, most of the time they say yes. So all good.
I'm liking that. I'm liking that a lot.
All right, so Justin, here's what I say we do. We could talk all night, but I think we should start answering some questions.
Okay,
You
let's
want to
do it.
feed me one or two?
I do. Thank you. Thank you. Can you still hear me with this beautiful looking?
Better than ever.
Um, so Jason Jason,
Hmm.
he's from Saudi Arabia.
Oh,
Welcome,
hello,
Jason.
Jason.
He's new in making Neapolitan,
Good.
and he's saying that this is the opportunity to ask some of the problems about the problems that he is encountering. So here
Do
we
we know
go.
if he's taken any of our classes yet?
It does not. He does not say.
Okay.
He's new in making Neapolitan.
Okay.
All right, so here he goes. What is the best hydration for pizza?
For
60%
Neapolitan
or
pizza,
70%? Yeah.
ah, for Neapolitan pizza, the classic would be 60%. If you wanted to go up to 70%, that would be more like neo Neapolitan. But if you're just getting started, 60.
And what do you mean by neo Neapolitan?
Well, that's a good question, Justin. What do you mean by neo Neapolitan? Let me throw it back to you.
Okay, geez, Louise. So there's traditional Neapolitan, which is VOP, or what's that? What are they?
VPN,
VPN, which stands for what?
Vera Pizza Napolitana.
So there are strict guidelines if you're trying to do traditional Neapolitan. But then there's this group of chefs or pizza makers or pizziolos that are trying to evolve from that, use that as a springboard to
Yep.
make different types of Neapolitan within the within kind of the that general idea of Neapolitan pizza. And
Yeah.
they are doing things like they're using pre-ferments, they're using blended flours, and they're using different types of hydration. So like Noel says, if you want to mess within that, you got to experiment. But traditionally, Neapolitan is a shorter lifespan. It's not quite as slow rise. Traditionally, it's like overnight. You make it, and then
I
within
would
that
say
day,
anywhere from 8 to about 16 hours is the
it,
range.
right? And usually their dough comes out at like what 68, 69, right?
Closer to about, they do a pretty warm ferment, so
Oh,
they
that's
start
right,
out around
70,
78 or
7.
80,
Oh,
believe it or
almost
not.
80. Yeah, yeah. So that means that they're ready to go in a couple hours. So
Absolutely.
that dough is ready to party. And so, yeah, what we mean by slow rise is what we like to do. Noel, can you just talk a little bit about what your philosophy is and why you came up with slow rise pizza, if you don't mind?
Well, so when I started baking, I was just following recipes, and I picked up a couple of books, and most of the books said, 2, 3 hours after you make the dough, you had pizza. And so I was making pizza with these recipes, thinking I was going to make awesome Neapolitan and New York and all kinds of, not very good, not very good results at all. So kind of like you, Justin, sometimes I'll make a bunch of pizza and then I would eat some of it that day and maybe some the next day and then maybe not the next day. But then I was noticing that it was getting better and better sometimes,
Mm.
after like a day or two or three. So I started to kind of fool around with that. And then I just fell down the rabbit hole
Yeah.
and started, just going crazy.
Yeah. So what I like to say is that pizza, the lifespan of pizza, if what Noel likes to say is the idea of slow rise, and is that we're in control, that you as the pizza maker, you are in control of the fermentato. And what I mean by that is fermentation, right? And that means being control of the variables in your pizza equation, right? So when your dough comes out and you start your bulk fermentation, it's not in fifth gear, as Noel likes to use a lot of automotive metaphors. So if you're trying to go from fifth gear back to second gear, you're going to screw up your engine. However, if you're in third or fourth gear, you can get back to second gear. Right. And what we like to do is we like to extend the life of our dough by only mixing it to a certain temperature and then putting it in the fridge for 2, 3, 4 days, depending on what you're looking for, depending on what type of pizza you're trying to produce, and really depending on what type of pizza you like to eat, because pizza is so subjective. I say pizza, there's a myriad of different variables in that pizza equation. So, it just make what you like, and you know, take that time, allow it and enable it, allow it and enable it. And my metaphor, my rule of thumbs, is that pizza is like drinking and playing pool. Is that you make your dough, and then you let it sit for 2 days, and then you ball it, and then another 2 days it gets better, like 2 beers you get better, 2 more beers you're getting really good, 2 more beers you're excellent at pool. By you have another 2 beers, you've totally fallen off and you can't play pool at all. So it's just one of those. That's the way I look at it. So a couple days, push it as long as you can go. What I feel like is that you get more flavor the longer you go, but you lose the life of the dough and it becomes more chewy, because you got to think of the burping and farting of the yeast. And if they're eating all their little sugars and eating all that stuff and starting to die out, you're not going to have as much life in your crust, but you're going to get some funky old flavors. No?
Yeah, I agree 100%.
All right.
Um,
Yep.
the way we like to teach it is we like to start with the tradition. So whether you're making Neapolitan or New York or Roman or really any of the regional styles, we like to start with traditional recipes, traditional fermentation schedules, traditional dough temperatures, and we teach people where to start. And then, as Justin says, you got to find your own taste and style and pizza frequency. And so we try to give you the tools to make the right decisions so that you're always extending the fermentation, but in a really controlled way. You're always extending the fermentation, but in a way that promotes better flavor, better shelf life, better texture, so you don't lose control of the fermentation and then the flavor and everything else. Justin, Justin, where'd you go? Let's see.
I
See what
didn't
happened.
mean to do
Did you
that.
mute yourself, Justin?
I didn't mean to. I don't know. I don't know. I did
Happens.
download the new. Okay. So Gary's saying, "Hey, Justin, what's up, Gary? Noel and the Slow Rise crew. That's basically just us. He's been taking the VOD of the beginner class, the video on demand. Picked up
Great.
some great tips. He's saying, I recently made his first Poolish. Okay. Okay. So you went from beginner, you went all the way to expert or advanced. So we're going to try to work on this a little bit. I recently made my first Poolish with buckwheat honey. Okay. Um, okay. Buckwheat honey, and let it sit at room temp for 1 hour, and then cold ferment for 24 hours. And then added the remaining flour and salt. How long can I let the Poolish ferment? There's a lot to unpack there.
Justin, give it a try. You start.
All right, here we go. So the beginner class, Gary, is just about what we like to do in that class is make dough by hand. And we don't deal with temperatures and we don't deal with times or anything like that. So if you're going to start making a Poolish, which is traditionally basically 100% hydration, flour and water, and then are you adding honey into it? You're adding sugar on top of that. You let it sit at room temp for 1 hour. Now, usually a Poolish is I mean, you can go Poolish up to 16 hours, but you have to make sure that it's at the right temp, right? And then you add the remaining salt, flour, and salt. How long can I let the Poolish ferment? It depends on the temperature, but usually a Poolish is only a percentage. If you're doing 100% Poolish, and all your yeast is in your Poolish, I don't know if that's going to work very well. No? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's a good question. I know a lot of people like to mess with Poolish. So I think that he probably jumped from the beginner to the advanced class,
Hmm.
and so he's breaking a lot of rules. So number one, no honey in the Poolish. That you don't need that. That would be what you would do once you perfect your Poolish. If you're going to
Hmm.
start by breaking the rules before you learn how to follow them, then it's very hard to work with that. So
Hmm.
you can't drive 150 miles an hour until you get your driver's license, right? Sorry for that one. So let's see. It sounds to me like Gary probably needs to dial it back a little bit, and he's got to get his dough performing properly, and then start adding traditional Poolish. The traditional Poolish goes anywhere from, let's say, 4 hours to maybe 24 hours. But like you said, Justin, we've been working with a lot of Italians lately who go up to about 16 hours in a very controlled, somewhat lower temperature than the French. So the French often go as high as 78 degrees for anywhere from, let's say, 4 to 24 hours. The Italians we've been working with are usually 60 to 65 degrees, and they're tending to go 12, 14, 16, maybe 18 hours. So those would be the traditional lengths of fermentation with Poolish. And then you would mix that next day and probably bake that same day, depending on how much Poolish you have.
But can I just, yeah, let's talk about usually the highest we go with pre-ferments is usually, especially with a Poolish or a Biga, is about 40%, and that's at the end, right?
So let's see. Yeah, so in the advanced class, we talk about pre-ferments, usually in the range of about 10 to 15%. Maybe 20 or 30 for certain Italian recipes, or maybe more of a modern New York recipe. We even know some recipes that have gone even 40 or 50% if you really want a lot of fermentation,
Hmm.
and you make the Poolish the night before, and then you're going to make the dough the same day. So yeah, I would say 40 or 50% at the highest. And then we've also dealt with some Italian recipes that go as high as even 100% Poolish if they're really wanting to push the fermentation and do a kind of a quick dough.
Right. And I think that that's an important thing. There, the reason you're doing a pre-ferment is because you want the dough to be ready to perform sooner. Well, that's one of the reasons. But so it's like you're asking, how long can I let the Poolish ferment? After 24 hours, that Poolish has exhausted all the yeast. Especially if you don't know what temperature it's at. I mean, if it's at 80 degrees, or I mean, if it's at above 70 degrees, it's done, right? I mean, I think you want Poolish is traditionally at what, 68?
Well, no, no, no. So, the Italians do it closer to 60, 65, and the French often do it as high as 78. There's quite a range.
Right, but then you have to sliding scale your time, because
Correct.
you want your Poolish to be what we learned the other day. So the Poolish is going to rise, and then the middle just starts to dip a little bit. And I learned just the other day that you don't want to get it here. You want to get it right when it starts to dip a little bit in the
Yeah,
center.
there you
That's
go.
when you're Poolish. And so based on the temperature, what I would do is get a GoPro, put a clock by it, and watch your thing.
Oh, good one,
I
Justin. I
mean,
like
like,
that.
yeah, seriously, like get a GoPro that you can do on time lapse,
I
and
love
then
that.
watch. I mean, well, you see all these videos on Instagram of people with their starters that go up, right? I mean, you see that all the time. So that's
Yep.
one of those things to like trying to figure out if you want to use buckwheat honey and stuff like that, you're kind of getting into unknown territory. But if you do the notes and you write it down, it might end up working for you, Gary. So um, I don't know about the 1 hour room temp and then cold ferment for 24 hours though. So
I mean, it can be done. It can be done. 1 hour at room temp gets the fermentation going, and then you delay the fermentation, with either cold water or cold temperature. It can be done. It
mhm.
sounds like he's breaking a lot of rules, and I'm not quite sure what the entirety of the recipe is. So, Gary, it's a good question, but it seems like you're jumping around just a little bit.
Yeah, so we'll come back to you. We spent
Yeah, no honey in the Poolish, please. All right,
yeah,
let's
yeah,
get
yeah.
rid of that. We don't need any honey in the Poolish.
So Anonymous is saying, I have a lot of questions.
Good.
It's good.
Do we know if Anonymous has taken any classes with us?
Anonymous just said,
Guys, you got to let us know. You got to let us know what you're up to, what you're
yeah,
thinking.
yeah. All right. So Victor is saying, Victor's taken the intermediate and the advanced class. Thank you,
Perfect.
Victor. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
Victor.
much. Been working with the sourdough recipes. Sourdough. 75% hydration, 20% AP,
Mm-hmm.
80% Caputo Blue.
Mm-hmm.
You do a bulk ferment 24 hours.
Yeah.
Portion in and overnight in the fridge. Okay, so you do a 24-hour, and then you portion it, and then you put it in the fridge overnight. You pull it at 8 a.m.,
Yep.
and then it's pushed out throughout the day and baked around 4 p.m.
Okay.
for a par bake. And we are getting a lot of pullback on the dough, and was curious how to stop that from happening.
Okay. First off, that's a really long bulk ferment for a Neapolitan. You're going to get way too much strength with that long bulk. So that is not typical. The longest that I know of people doing bulk ferments or bulk retards for Neapolitan is overnight, not 24 hours. Without nice high hydration like he's talking about,
So
it
he's
sounds
doing
like,
pan. He's doing pan pizza.
yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know anybody who's using 00, Caputo 00, that's doing such a long rise.
He said it was
Uh,
Caputo Blue. Is that the
it's
same?
double
Okay.
zero. Yeah, it's
Copy.
Pizzeria
Just
Blue.
gotcha.
So, I mean, there's a lot going on there. Yeah, so I would say shorten your bulk ferment, and that'll give you less structure and less strength. It also has to do with your mixing style, how long you're mixing it for, what degree of gluten development. Also, I would say that once you're finished with the bulk ferment and you're dividing and weighing out your dough balls, what I notice is that a lot of the Italians, they do very little in the way of pre-shaping and shaping. They're doing the absolute minimum so they get the maximum in extensibility. So that would be another thing to look at as well.
Um,
Did you say if there's any olive oil in the dough?
he says he's not pre-shaping. He wrote another one. Okay, so he's looking to make pizza similar to Mama's too. So I don't know what that is, but
That's a pizza. You know what? Maybe he can come on and we can have a little chat with him because
let me. I'm going to do that. But he wrote something else here. He does. Yeah, let me just. I'm reading this right now. Yeah, he's not doing any. Okay. Into the fridge. Okay, so this is his method, and we'll bring him on if we don't get it. All right, so we mix the flour and water. We do a 1 minute. We mix for 1 minute. Autolaze for 30 minutes, and then add the salt and the remaining water and mix 8 to 10, speed 2, spiral mixer. His DDT is 73 to 74, right?
hmm
Okay, bench ferment 30 minutes, then into the fridge for bulk for 24 hours.
hmm
Okay, then we divide the dough and put it into the pan and push it out slightly, and you let it rest overnight in the fridge.
hmm
We pull it at room temp about 8 a.m. Excuse me, and push out to bake around 4 p.m.
Did he say how big the pans are and how big the dough balls are?
No, let's
Let's
bring
get this
Vic
man
on.
on and talk to him. Come on.
Vic, come on over.
Hopefully he's got some
Where's
pants on.
Yep. Or if you don't, hey, even better.
Yeah, I mean this is a lot of information to unpack. It would be better if we could have a conversation.
Yeah.
Hello, Victor. What's going on over there?
Vic, what it is, dog?
Hey guys, how's it going, man?
Going great. How
We're
are you?
chilling.
Nice. Thanks for doing this tonight. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Where are you?
Toronto, Canada.
Very nice. And now are you doing this when you say we? You have a pizzeria up there?
Yeah, I own a few restaurants.
Very nice.
Started off Neapolitan, and then we opened up a few more restaurants. And the Neapolitan was kind of hard to keep training the same people how to work with a wood burning oven, so we switched over to more of a New York style pizza
I get it.
in an electric oven, and it's been great. And then during the closures and all the downtime that we've had, we decided to launch a secondary pizzeria out of the restaurants that we already have. And so we've been trying to do like, I guess the Mama's too. I was in New York. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed eating the pizza. I thought it was super tasty. I loved the crust. And with the crust part, we're there. It's phenomenal. We're just getting pullback on the dough, and I can't seem to get it to not happen. So,
all right. How big are your pans?
off the top of my head, I want to say they're big. They're like 15 by 17.
Okay, so they're
14,
almost
14 by 17.
okay, almost squares, but not quite. And how
Yeah,
much dough are you putting in there?
1,200 grams.
So, and how thick do you want it?
I don't want it like Detroit thick.
Yeah.
So a little bit. The pans that we're using, they're not the Lloyd's pans. They're not like the big ones. They're just, that doesn't work on Zoom, I don't think. Maybe they're like tops 2 inches.
Okay. So,
And
and what do you do for like pre-shaping? Are you balling your doughs? Are you making what? How are you doing
no,
it?
so we mix the dough, bench ferment for 30 minutes, put it into the fridge, ferment overnight, take it out, cut it, put it directly into the pan.
Oh, so you cut it. Do you shape it or you just
No,
put a big
no.
blob in?
We just put a big blob, basically, however it comes out. We kind of push it out a little bit to get it somewhat even,
Yeah.
and then let it rest again overnight.
That's all right. So usually you should put some kind of shape to it.
Okay.
Just because if you want it to ferment properly, it needs to be able to trap gas. So
Yeah.
it might be that your dough is not fermenting properly because it's not trapping gas because you're not shaping it. You have to give it a shape.
I would say that I have tried both though as well. Like I've done the pre-shape, I've shaped and then put them into the pan, and not shaped and put them into the pan because I figured if we didn't shape it, maybe it would not build so much gluten, and then it would be a little bit easier not to contract so much in the oven.
Okay, and let's go back to your mix then. How long are you mixing?
So the pre-mix is about 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Comes together, then let it auto-lees for 30.
Yep.
Put the rest of the salt and water in, and then mix for 8 to 10.
And it's 20% AP and 80% Caputo Blue.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Caputo Blue is usually pretty extensible, especially at a decent hydration like you have it. So you should not be having that problem. First thing I would do is see what happens if you cut down your bulk. So why don't you do like a 2-hour bulk and then take it out of the pan? And then chop it off, put it in the pan, and see what happens the next day.
Okay, cool.
See if it's the bulk fermentation that's causing it to become too strong. I would imagine
the gluten's building up way too much during the bulk fermentation, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
So that would be the first thing. I just don't like the idea of cutting off a piece of dough and not giving it some shape.
Okay.
Then it's not gonna trap gas. It might not be the right shape to fill the corners of the pan. When you say it doesn't extend, does it extend lengthwise, widthwise, not to the corners? Where?
No, we get it to the corner.
Yeah.
We totally get it to the corners, but when we go in to par bake it, we par bake before we add the toppings.
Shrinks.
It shrinks. It pulls back.
I mean, it could really be a lot of things. Have you tried adding more water?
I haven't gone up on the hydration. That was my next thing that I was going to go.
That would be an easy one. Have
Yeah,
you tried adding a little bit of olive oil to make it more extensible?
We haven't tried any fat either, but because I find the fat, and you could tell me if I'm wrong here, but I find the fat kind of breaks down the different size air bubbles that I'm looking for, like the.
I would say if you go to 1 or 2%, it shouldn't do that at all. Especially if you have a spiral mixer, right?
Yeah.
So
add it later.
Get your dough exactly. Get your dough to like 50 to 75% gluten development, closer to 75, and then as Justin says, slowly drizzle in the olive oil so that the gluten development is mostly there. You're just going to coat the gluten strands and just make it more extensible. That would be besides hydration, a little bit of olive oil goes a long way.
All right, I'll add like 1% olive oil and up it by. I don't mind going up higher in the hydration. I enjoy the high hydration doughs.
What are you at, Vic? What are you at right now? 70?
78 to 80% usually. It's in that it's pretty high. I mean, we've done Neapolitans upwards of 95 and had some really good fun results out of it. It's completely different. Like it's the softest, non-tough thing in your. It's crazy, but it's super.
Now, what is that AP flour you're using? Who makes it?
It's P&G is a name of a mill up here in Canada.
You need to find out the protein on that because one of the tricks that Justin and I have used before is we find a flour that has lower protein, more extensibility. Justin, you like spelt still, right?
I do. I like
spelt is one of our favorites. So it's a flour that is kind of soft. It has nice flavor and nuttiness, and we use it for extensibility. So 20%, 10 to 20% spelt would be a great thing. Also, depending on your AP flour, it could mean a lot of things. It could mean 11% protein, and all-purpose could mean 14. It's just for all purposes. So you gotta look at the specs from the mill and make sure it's lower than the protein on your Caputo Blue, which is around 12.5, 12.75.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I'll try
also, I would cut down on the mix time. That would be another thing. If you're having too much strength, then don't mix so long.
Yeah.
cut down your second speed mix in half. Add a stretch and fold and see if
Hmm.
that helps.
Okay. Yeah, those all make
Okay.
sense perfectly. It makes sense. I like the idea of the spelt flour. I think that's great.
Yeah, and then come back. I think we're gonna do next week. We might not, but then the week after, if you want to come back and let us know how your progress has been.
Yeah, we're closed. We're closed around the holidays, but then yeah,
Good.
definitely we're open again for that on the 30th. So it'd probably be the Friday after that, which
Yeah,
that'd be great.
these are my best answers so far.
I really appreciate it. That's a lot of help. That's a lot of help right
Thanks for
there.
hanging
So
out with us. We appreciate you.
pleasure, man. Cheers.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks,
Vic.
Victor. You
Cheers,
too.
bud.
Happy
So,
holidays.
You too.
Anonymous is asking if you can, what are the books on top of your fridge or fridge
Aha.
number 2?
Fridge number 2. Good. Some of my favorite ones. So let's see. This is American Pie by Peter Reinhardt. It was one of my first favorite books, and it's kind of a tour de force of all of his favorite styles of pizza dough. So that was one of the books that I started out with. That's a great one. This is Gabriele Bonci's book. He's a famous Roman pizza guy that does pizza al taglio. That's a great one. This is Peter Reinhardt's a book called Bread. It's an absolute classic for artisan bread making. It's great for home bakers too. This is Jim Leahy's book called My Bread, another classic. Got me started on my high hydration kind of little my journey. This is Advanced Bread and Pastry. This is the Bible for all artisan bread makers in the kind of European style, especially if you're into French, Italian, and German. That's the go-to book. I've got a book called Tartine over here. I've got another Bonci book in Italian. I've got another book by Jim Leahy. I've got Katie Parla's book, Food of the Italian South. Believe it or not, yet another Tartine book, number 3, that goes into lots of different alternative flours, including spelt. And the last one is Handbook on Sourdough Biotechnology, which is something that I've been trying to read for 5 years and I can't quite get through. But we're going to be doing some pretty advanced classes on sourdough, so I'm boning up.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that. All right, so we have some more questions.
Good.
So Jason is saying, Jason, who didn't tell us if he's taken any of the classes. That's okay.
Could be his secret, I guess.
Why my dough is not 100% cook on the edge.
Well, let's see. It depends on what kind of dough you are using. So let's assume you're using a New York pizza dough. That's what we use in our beginner and our intermediate class. So if your dough is not cooked on the inside, that means that probably you didn't develop the gluten properly. If your dough is not cooked on the outside, that could mean that your temperature on your oven is too low, or maybe you haven't given it enough time. So without knowing what kind of dough you're using, what kind of oven you're using, what style of pizza you're making, it's hard to answer that question. It's a little bit vague. But if you want to hit us up with a follow-up question, Justin, I'm all ears.
I like that. I like that. And then Jason's also asking, what's the best to use? Fresh yeast, biga, or dry yeast, or starter dough?
Oh my God, what a question! What a question! So it sounds like he is either a beginning intermediate or intermediate beginner. These are all great questions. So I would say, here's the progression: start with instant dry yeast. That's the easiest one to start with. It's the most consistent. Get your recipe as good as you can get it. And then if you have access to fresh yeast, where did he say he was? Do we know what part of the world he's in?
No, I got no idea.
So if we don't know, because a lot of times, like in California, you can't get fresh yeast. Or I
Mhm.
worked in the Middle East last year. In Kuwait City, we couldn't get fresh yeast. It was all frozen. So I prefer to use instant dry yeast if you can't get it fresh. And then from there, I would say go to a biga. A biga is intermediate or advanced, right? And it's a yeasted pre-ferment, and see what you can do with that. And then once you can do all the other 3, instant dry, fresh yeast, and biga, then and only then would I move to sourdough. Super
Gotcha.
advanced.
Gotcha. I like that. I like that. Taking it in stages. I like using a big sometimes, but
Justin, I
I've
got
been
a
using.
question for you.
Mhm.
When did you first start using biga?
I think I started doing it after. Oh, you know what I think it was? I think it was after we were. No. I started using Poolish after watching our buddy from Texas,
Mhm.
Lee
Lee
Hunsinger,
Hunsinger.
because he used Poolish, And then I guess I started using Biga because I was looking for bigger cornichone
Got it.
because the Poolish was working well. I mean, I have all my recipes this whole time in COVID. And then I went to Biga and I liked what the Biga was doing, but then I went back to Poolish. And since then, I've really liked, I was actually doing Biga, and then we were able to get our hands on some Caputo flour, and I switched up my recipe. Instead of using some wheat here, I went to a type 1, and I started using, instead of using bread flour, I was still using King Arthur AP as my performance, and that's like my solid 40%.
Yeah.
But I was able to move to Super Nuvola,
Yeah.
and I just and so that mix started doing really well. And so I started doing my Poolish with a type 1 and rye at 4 hours at about 80 degrees. And so that was right when my dough, like I said, my Poolish was like, so it was giving me like this crazy good flavor, and because of the Nuvola or whatever it was, I was also getting some nice extensibility and some life in the crust. And so that's when, so I've kind of gone back and forth. And to be honest with you, my wife and I just sitting here eating 1,000 pizzas, we kind of worked it out that, so what I've been using is the Poolish, because I feel like, I don't know, the dough is strong enough that it has the flavor that I like from the Poolish, but it also has the strength because of the proteins in the flour. So I don't necessarily need that strength from the Poolish, or I'm sorry, from the Biga.
From the Biga.
Yeah.
Got it. Good answer.
There we go.
Do you have any advice for people out there who are maybe straddling the between beginner and intermediate?
So
do you think that Poolish is an easier one to start with and then move on to the Biga, or vice versa?
I think that what I learned is Biga is a little bit more forgiving because it's drier.
Yeah.
Because Biga is traditionally between like 45% hydrato, and so you have a longer window to use it because it's not as high hydrato.
You got to explain that to people.
Okay,
some people haven't taken our class.
So here's the dealio. If you're using a pre-ferment, whether it's a Poolish or a Biga, excuse me, the Biga is traditionally 45% hydration to 100% flour, to the 100% flour. So that means you have whatever percentage of flour is, you have 45% hydration. And so it's literally like little pebbles and rocks. And so you can keep that at 65 degrees, you can keep it at 80 degrees, but the window that you have where it's active and it doesn't get out of control, like Noel says a lot, we're still in control of that fermentato because of the lower level of hydrato. And, you guys are following me. So when you have a Poolish is very active because it's equal parts water and flour, almost like a sourdough starter, but you do add yeast to it. So what happens is you have equal parts water and flour, you add yeast to that, those mother stinkers are ready to party. That's why I'm doing 4 hours. My Biga is performing, my Poolish is performing where I want it to within 4 hours. But that's using 90-degree water, and then I let it sit at 80 degrees inside my microwave. My microwave's not on, but that is working well for me in my tiny old Venice apartment. So I've liked using the Biga for strength. I really like using the Poolish for flavor and stuff like that, and then augmenting my recipe, augmenting my percentage of what flours I'm using to give me some of the strength, so I have a nice cornichone. So, yeah, it's always a sliding scale, always a sliding scale. So, here we go. So, Ethan is asking a really good question. Thank you, Ethan. So Ethan is interested in working his way through the classes, has not done it, I'm assuming, to elevate his pizza game to where he'd like them to be, I guess. Here's the question. Do the classes include a workbook? Or will or do you need a legal pad to take copious notes?
Good question.
Is the pace such that it accommodates this? Here's what I'd say. In all our classes, we say, get your crayons, get your pencils. They do come with a couple of sheets, but not necessarily a notebook. Every class does come with access to a G drive where you get the recipe and what we like to call the mix map list of things that you need. So you do have some sheets to start with, but we encourage everybody, I mean, this is a class, you know, we don't have a worksheet necessarily or a workbook for you to work with. I mean, there's going to be gold. There's going to be like knowledge bombs that we're just pulling out of the air and dropping. And how do we put that into a workbook, basically? So we encourage everybody to get their crayons, get their pencils, get their picture pages, and take notes. There's a lot of time during the classes where we just say, guys, let's go get our legal pads, get whatever writing utensil you want, and sit down because we're done with the mix, but we want you to take notes. And the great thing about the classes, the on-demand classes, is you have a window to watch them. So if you miss something, you can pause it, go right back, and you can write down the notes from the knowledge bombs that we're dropping. Noel?
All right, that was a good answer. Let me follow up, and I'll be a little more specific. So the way that we do it is like in the beginner class, it's a two-part class. First 2 hours, we just mix and talk about fermentation. So you will get a recipe, flour, water, salt, yeast, and we add a little olive oil and sugar for browning for the home baker, right? And we talk about what everything is for, and we walk you through the process. We do it together very slowly. That's why they call me slow rise pizza, right? Then we give you 3 different possible scenarios for your fermentation schedule and your balling. And the next day, we reconvene at the same time and we all make pizza together. And we play a lot of show us your dough, show us your pizza. So we can discuss and look at the similarities and differences, right? Then in the intermediate class, we use the same recipe, but we teach you an entirely different process, more of a professional process. And we get into mixing styles. And as Justin was saying earlier, we start to elevate how we look at time and temperature. In the beginner class, we really only look at time, not temperature. And then in the intermediate, we kind of put them together and spend a lot of time temping the flour, the water, the salt, the yeast. And so there's a long answer and a short answer, but what I would say is that what Justin usually says is that the recipe is the constant, and it's the variables that mess people up, right? And so what we give you is a good starter recipe that we know works. We've made it hundreds or thousands of times, and then we teach you how to interpret, how to look at, how to understand the different variables in the pizza equation. And once you understand, right, all of those variables, kind of in an objective way, then we encourage you to take it to the next level, like in the advanced class, upping the hydration, introducing different pre-ferments, and that's kind of how we work every class.
Yeah, let me just jump in on that. What we say, recipe does not pizza make. Okay, so we're happy to share the recipe in the beginner class and the intermediate class. It's the same recipe. It's just the process that is different, the technique that is different, and the variables that you have in your kitchen with your mixer and the flours that you have and the yeast that you have. Those are all variables in your pizza equation. So what we want to give you is a roadmap. That's why I say it's a mix map. So because the way you mix it and the temperatures you use and the flour you use and the mixer you use, all those things are different variables. So we can only give you the tools for you to take the notes so you can figure out your pathway to the pizza that you want to make. So yeah. So what we try to do is give you those tools in basically your pizza toolkit, so you can start dialing in the pizza that you want to make. Because, like I said, it's so subjective.
Good. Let me add one more thing to that because I get a lot of questions about this. So one of the main differences between the beginner one, intermediate one, and advanced one compared to the number 2 or part 2 classes is that we're super focused on the process in all 3, beginning, intermediate, and advanced 1. Now, when we get to intermediate 2, people always say, well, do I have to take the intermediate 1 before the intermediate 2? You don't have to. But if you want to make dough in advance of the class to have ready, it's very difficult for most people to interpret the recipe, right? To understand the times and the temps and all of the techniques that we utilize if you haven't taken the part 1 class. And so we welcome you to take the part 2 before the part 1, but it assumes you have enough knowledge to that you know what an improved mix is, that you know what an intensive mix is, that you understand desired dough temperature and friction factor. And if you don't, it's not that you can't take the classes, but it's going to be difficult for you to mix in advance. Probably it'll be better for you to maybe skip that mix and just sit with us and mix together in class and watch as the rest of us bake and shape and top and talk about fermentation and all the lovely things we talk about. Justin?
Yep, I'm right there with you.
Good.
Why? Hey, you better learn to crawl before you can run.
Right.
All
Couldn't have said
right,
it better.
so here we go. Lawrence is asking, hey, it's LK from NYC. What up, Lawrence?
What's up, Lawrence?
78% hydrato. 2 hours room temp fermentato. Then he does a bulk retard for 1 day cold. And then ball. And then another day cold fermentato balled.
Mhm.
All right, during the balled cold ferment and then relaxing before the bake, the dough is flattening like into a pancake shape. And then the dough is very delicate during stretching.
Yes.
What variable might be causing that? And he says also, he said, okay, this is it's a separate question. If I'm using instant dry yeast and a
Let's
hand
not get
mix,
to the second one.
yeah,
Let's not
okay,
get to the second
yeah.
one. All right. So, do we know if he's taking any classes with us yet?
Yeah, Lawrence, I didn't get that. I didn't get that.
All right. So, do we know what his recipe is, or would we like to invite him on to talk with us?
Yeah, why don't we
'Cause
just
there's
go ahead
we
and
need to understand some of the constants before we talk about
Yeah.
the variables.
why don't we go ahead and bring old Lawrence in?
Let's bring Lawrence on. Maybe he's
Larry. I'm gonna call you Larry. Here you go, Lawrence.
call him Larry. Call him Larry.
Yeah.
Is he coming?
Yep, promoting to panelist. Come on over.
Ooh.
Promoting you to panelist. Larry, come on down. Come on and talk to us. Here he comes.
Mute.
There you go. What's up?
How are you,
Come
sir?
out, see you.
Testing 1 2. We hear you, but we can't see you, which is just fine. If you want to stay hidden, you can.
I don't want to stay hidden. Here we go. Okay.
How are
Larry.
you,
Thanks
sir?
for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Sure. All right. So, what kind of pizza are you trying to make?
So I'm making sort of I hate to say it, sound non-committal, but from all my visits to Raza, I'm like emulating that sort of
Good.
hybrid between a Neapolitan and a New York style.
Love it.
I'm alternating between baking on a steel and in a pizziolo.
Good.
But my last several doughs, and listening to you tonight, one of the things that I've done is I had done a couple with olive oil and then I removed it. Maybe
Okay.
I need to put it back, but my dough is coming out so delicate. And when I went from fermenting it in the delis to I bought one of those like trays because I wanted to be real pro-like.
Yeah.
And so I've been putting them in there. No, the
Yeah.
big, like the,
Yeah. Big dough trays, dough boxes.
and they just,
All right. So, a couple things. What kind of flour are you using?
so what I did over the weekend, I used a blend of King Arthur AP and a little of the Central Milling whole wheat. It's
Very good. And
285.
do you know what the hydration of your flour is? Of your pizza is? Your dough?
78.
All right. So, you're pretty high on the hydration. That AP flour is very weak by design. It's a strong AP, 11.6, 11.8%, but you probably need to dial up. I would go to the next level of King Arthur. I would go to their bread flour, which is like 12.6. That'll help you with the fermentation and the hydration.
And will it give the dough more strength so it doesn't
Of
collapse
course,
on me like
of
that?
course, of course. The other thing you could try to do is, it sounds like you're bulk fermenting for 1 day and then you're in secondary fermentation for a second day. Here's what I would try. I love dough that's well hydrated like yours. What if on the second day you shape it, you let it rest for like 6 hours or so out, not refrigerated, and then you bake it on that day? Have you tried that?
No, I haven't. So you're saying don't, and I didn't used to do that also. I think I'm tinkering too much. So don't ferment it the second time bald.
Don't ferment it for too long in refrigerated because it becomes too relaxed, especially with a weak AP flour and a lot of hydration for that type of flour.
Might it stand up better if I used a higher protein, like
For
if I
sure.
switch to the bread flour?
It definitely would. But so here's the thing. When you're trying to identify what factors are, let's say, negatively impacting your dough, you only want to change one thing at a time. So let's take a quick step back, and then I think Justin wants to say something. Number one, all right, is it hydration? So you might want to drop your hydration by a few points, maybe down to 72%, just as a starting point.
Mhm.
All right. Number two, you might want to use a stronger flour. So go from AP to maybe the bread flour. That would be a second thing. The third thing would be change your fermentation schedule. And instead of going into secondary and doing secondary refrigerated, ball the dough, let it sit out, let it rise at room temperature, and see if maybe the secondary fermentation is letting your dough relax too much. And what you really want to do is ball it and bake it on the same day.
So, but because you don't want to have it out at room temp for too long, right? I mean,
It depends on how much yeast you have and what the temperature of the room is. Have you taken any of our classes yet?
no, but I just found out about you guys like 3 days ago. So,
All right. So here's the thing. We're actually going to be doing classes with Dan at Rotsa. And so I've gotten a lot of questions about this online. And so here's what I'm telling people. Dan is in 10 years, he's going to be what Chris Bianco is right now. I'm absolutely positive of it. And Chris Bianco is still going to be Chris Bianco, but Dan is next level. And so if you want to get anywhere near his level, if I want to get anywhere near his level, you have to, here's what I'm going to say, and I'm not trying to sell you stuff, right? But take the intermediate class so you have an understanding of fermentation and traditional bread techniques, because Dan is a bread baker. He's making pizza, but he, just like me, he's using artisan bread techniques. So you got to understand all the parts of the fermentation and how they fit together. And then Dan, the other thing he's doing is he's using a lot of different kinds of pre-ferments for different reasons. He's using sourdough, he's using yeast, he's using pâte fermentée, he's using a Poolish or a levain. And the thing is that every day when you go to his pizzeria, he might have 2 or 3 different doughs with different pre-ferments, right? But he does have certain constants. And I know for a fact that he uses King Arthur as his performance flour, right? And I know that he fools with other flours like you are. So I like the idea of having like a bread flour as your performance flour, and then like a central milling flour, like a Type 85 for flavor. Right. Another thing you might do is maybe you want to up the Type 85 from 10 or 20% up to 40 or 50%.
for more strength again.
Yeah, because then it'll drink up more of the water and you won't have to reduce the hydration. But here's the thing, though. That's going to affect the flavor of your dough a lot.
But I like that. It gives it great texture and flavor.
It gives it, yeah. But here's the thing. Like as a Pizza Expo 2 years ago, I did 50% whole wheat flour, and it was a mix of different types of whole wheat. Nobody knew it was whole wheat. You could tell, but I used a lot of levain, right? Liquid levain, very sweet, high hydration, 100%, like Justin was saying, with like Poolish. And it gave it a lot of beautiful acidity and sweetness. Sometimes if you don't use a pre-ferment like a levain and you have a lot of whole wheat, it comes out bitter and it can be a little bit tough or dry. So you got to be careful. I don't go changing all these things at once, but when you change one thing, you got to look at something else. And so back to Dan, if you ever want to take the class with him, probably our first class will be in February. Okay. You have to understand pre-ferments, which we teach in the advance, and you have to understand like the basic tenets of artisan bread baking, which we teach in the intermediate.
So you do the pre-ferments in the classes that you have online right now?
Yeah, and so the online classes, if you specifically want to learn about pre-ferments, I suggest the advanced course, because what I try to do is I spend about, like Justin was saying, I have you sit down and take notes, and I go through all the pre-ferments that I like to use. I start with traditional baguette recipes. I move on to ciabatta recipes. And then I talk about like alternatives or cousins of those. Because I want people to understand how to make a baguette. That informs your New York pizza. I want people to understand how to make ciabatta. That informs your Roman, right? I want people to understand how you can use just a tiny bit of yeast. And that's how traditional Neapolitan pizza is made. And so you have to understand the traditions, right, and the history and the whys of what people were using to make these 3 like mother doughs. After that, then you can hopefully get to a level like Dan at Rotsa does. But you don't just go from 0 to 100 by taking Dan's class, because you're going to be in trouble. I'm going to be in trouble.
I'm not looking for an easy out, but
I
was going to ask you, in any case, whether it's Neapolitan, New York, the hybrid, does the olive oil help a little bit?
Well, it could help or it could hurt. And so here's what I say. In general, you want to start with a straight dough. In the beginner class, we put like 2 or 3% olive oil in, 2 or 3% sugar, because a lot of people don't have very hot ovens. So it helps for browning. It helps for crispiness. But you don't really need much of that.
Yeah.
So if you're learning to control fermentation. But then You can use malt if you need it in place of sugar, and you can use olive oil if you need it if there's something you're looking for that you're not getting either through fermentation or with yeast or with proper temping and timing.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And I'll
for
check out
joining
the
us.
classes for sure.
Cool.
Yeah. Keep
Thanks,
in touch.
Larry.
And come back
on
any
my-
Monday you want. I used to answer all the emails, but now I'm getting like hundreds a week, and it just takes up too much time. I wish.
No,
I
this
could.
is a great
It's
way to knock it out.
I think
and
so. I like
it's
it.
tough being so popular, huh, Noel? Jeez Louise, right?
I wouldn't call myself popular, not yet.
All those
Not yet.
emails. Thanks,
It's a lot of
Larry.
emails.
Thank you
Well,
guys again.
it's
keep
actually the
baking.
same 6 or 7 people over and over, mostly, right?
Stop. So keep baking, dude. Keep baking
I will,
and
for sure.
we say keep baking and making and burning and learning, dog.
Good questions, Lawrence. Good
Thanks,
questions.
Larry.
Thank you much.
Thanks,
Welcome.
See ya.
How do I get out? Do you kick me out or do I
How
have to
do
go
I
out?
get
tonight?
out of
Get
here?
All right, that's enough out of you, Larry.
You got me?
Yeah, let's get a sweetheart. I miss Larry
He was
already.
good, right?
Miss Larry already.
I hope he comes to one of our live classes. He's fun.
Yeah.
He has good
Oh,
questions too, right? You can
Yeah.
tell. You know what I like about his questions? Like, he's very patient. He's very
Mhm.
thoughtful, and I think those are 2 important things in being a baker.
Well, I mean, that's what one thing we talk about when we talk about making pizza is you have to enable and allow the pizza to do its own thing. Because if you're trying to knead the ship out of it, your pizza's not gonna, it's not gonna love you back, basically. So, and then that's another tenet of the slow rise idealism is that, you do a little baking and then you let it be. I mean, it's just, or I'm sorry, you do a little mixing, you let it be. You do a stretch and fold, you let it be. Just allow time to do a lot of the work. And I think that people are a little too eager to get the dough right. And I gotta get it. I want to get this dough so hard that you're actually doing a disservice to your dough. Remember that allowing it, letting it be, enabling your dough to do its own thing are super important to get the dough. But I thought that was interesting that, I mean, I definitely think that's that make to bake schedule, what Larry's talking about.
Yeah.
If the dough's coming out too relaxed, you got to switch up some of the variables in that pizza equation, whether that be the temperature, the amount of yeast, the flours that you're using, the mix time, all those things. That's really important. So, all right. All right. So we got 2 more people. So what I'm going to do, we only really have 2 more questions right now.
Mhm.
So it's 6. I'm just going to invite we don't really have that many people on.
It's a holiday week, huh?
Yeah, it's holiday, and Gary is still here, and I know that Gary maybe wants some more. So I'm just going to bring everybody on. We've got 2 Garys here. So we're
Let's keep
going to
them on
start.
other sides, opposite sides of the screen. Can you
Yeah,
do that,
no
Justin?
doubt. So I want to talk to my boy Aaron, who's here with us. Aaron, Danny Perez, our friend, Dave Caps, D Caps. Thank you. These are all of our friends that have taken all of our classes and have hung out with us a number of times.
Good.
What's up? Aaron?
Aaron.
How's it going? So we're just going to promote everybody. We do have a couple more questions in the old. What's up, Danny? What's up, bud?
Hey, Danny.
So you guys haven't spent any time with us. These are some, these are some of our pizza family, if you will. And 'tis the season. You guys like what I've done with the place? I mean,
Love it, Justin. Love
yeah,
it.
thank you. All right. So what I want to do is Jason is coming on. I think Jason's coming on. I'm trying to get everybody over here. What's up, Dave?
Hey, Dave.
Terry, come on over. All right, guys. All right. So here is the question. So I'm going to start with Gary. What's up, Jace? All right. So Gary Scardina. I'm going to start with Gary here. He's saying I'm a home pizziolo, and he's in LA. Been making pizza for 7 years or so, and took the AVPN class.
Yep.
What's that?
Probably American, like Neapolitan style pizza making class.
And has a wood-fired oven.
Good.
And started making the. What's up, Terry? Hello, Terry and wife, or Terry and friend. Started making Sicilian and Detroit in the regular old electric oven, and Chicago tavern style.
Love it.
Just stumbled upon you and interested in your lessons but not sure where to start. So
right.
that's like Chicago. Let's talk about this. Sicilian, Detroit, Chicago tavern style. If you're going for those type of styles, can you talk to us maybe about some of the characteristics of those styles? Sicilian and Detroit, differences, similarities.
Who are you talking to, Justin?
I'm asking you.
Oh, hold on.
There's
where's
Gary.
Where's that question? Hey, Gary.
There's Gary.
Where's that question? Am I looking in the? Am I looking?
Gary,
in the
we
Q&A?
can't hear you. We can't hear you.
We're gonna wait for him. All right. So let me see.
moment.
So Justin, it looks like he's saying he took the Sicilian class from John Arena, right? Tavern style class from Leo Spinizzi
Oh,
in
geez.
Chicago, and then the Detroit style class from Derek Tung. All right.
Yeah,
Are
I
we
tell
on
you.
the same page there? All
I
right,
mean,
good.
it seems like Gary has taken a bunch of classes from some of the greats within the pizza game.
That's right. So here's what I would say, Gary. So we are less focused on like specific styles and more focused on like fermentation technology. So I'll give you, for instance, I know all these guys. I particularly know John Arena very well, and so like I already know what his Sicilian is. I've eaten it many times. I've mixed dough and had fun with him in his pizzeria. I go there. I used to go there every year for the Pizza Expo. So a class like a pizza like that would be a good. The advanced class would be good for that one right there, because you could then take that recipe and dial up the hydration or change his fermentation schedule. I know he likes to mix with really cold water and ferment for up to 5 days, and that's one way to do it, but that's really his way to do it. And so if you want to get technical, or you want to learn to play with the fermentation on a Sicilian style like John Arena's style, I mean, first off, he's one of the pizza greats in the United States, so it's hard to improve on something that's already so good. He's been practicing for 30 or 40 years with his cousin, and he started in his family's pizzeria in New York. But I would say that the advanced class is great for the pan pizzas, because we get into high hydration, we get into pre-ferments, which I don't think he uses at all in any of his pizzas. And then also, I would like to play with his fermentation schedule a little bit. I know a cold fermentation for 5 days is the way he does it, but I think you could get really nice results at a 1 or even 2 or maybe 3 days. So I would just kind of look at temperatures and times. Also, he likes to play with a lot of high gluten flour. I'm not really a high gluten guy. So, depending on what flour you're playing with, you can adjust the fermentation schedule or the hydration to kind of play with that. Leo Spinizzi, he's a world champion pizza maker. I believe he's out of Chicago. I love the tavern style pizza he does. We do a class with Adam Kuban, who does a similar recipe to that. That's a really beautiful recipe. Generally speaking, it's a low hydration recipe, so right around 55% hydration or so, and usually there's a good amount of fat. You can use lard, you can use oil, you can use butter, you can use all kinds of beautiful things. So what's interesting about that recipe right there is that, generally speaking, it's kind of a no fermentation recipe, right? You get a really crispy crust out of it because the hydration is so low. You roll it out with a rolling pin or a sheeter, and it's really nice. But one of the things that I would say that I would do to improve that recipe, not that you can improve on anything that Leo does, because he's a true master, but what I noticed in Chicago tavern style and some of the kind of like bar style pizzas that you find outside of New York metropolitan area, and also some of the Roman pizzas, right? Like literally those little thin crust Roman pizzas that they serve in Rome, is that I like to play around with the fermentation in secondary fermentation. I like to take the dough, roll it out, and put it back in the refrigerator in between pieces of parchment and let it continue to ferment, so that, for instance, you get more air in that dough and you get a nice crispy crust, really different than the way Leo does it, or the way Adam does it. Gary, do we have sound now?
Can you hear me?
I do. Hello.
Unbelievable. I went to connect a microphone. This is the first time I've ever done this with Zoom on an iPad. And as soon as I went to connect the audio, it disconnected me from the meeting. So I actually missed the last minute.
Oh,
so
right.
sorry.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. So do me a favor. Tell me in your own words what you're looking to know. I think I've given everybody else a lot of information, but tell me what you want to know, and I'll walk you through it.
Well, I originally started making Neapolitan pizzas. So I thought, well, maybe that's the hardest. Let's start there and then work our way backwards. So we'll start with the simplest one, which seems to be the hardest. And so,
You're right again.
So I still haven't figured out my Neapolitan recipe, and I've tried Bigas and Poolishes and straight, direct, indirect, Canodo, and all that. But because of COVID this year, I decided to, being from Chicago, miss the thin crust.
Yeah.
So I learned how to, Leo Spazzeri showed me how to do a thin crust, and okay, that's nice. And of course, as soon as I did that, they opened up a Chicago thin crust pizzeria in Hermosa Beach last week.
Nice.
Who knew? But then I also this summer learned some Sicilian from John Arena, and then also Derek Tung taught me how to make his U.S. Pizza Cup winner. So I have another good friend, Anthony Scardino. He's also known as Professor Pizza in Chicago. I guess you're Professor of Pizza. Anyway, and he makes these grandma pies and that are just fantastic. The crumb structure is unbelievable. Really big pockets of air, very light and airy. So it's crispy on top, crispy on the bottom, and just like nothing in between.
Nice.
And so I've been, between Derek's recipe and I've started to do a cross between Derek's and John's, and because they're a little different, and I'm just not getting the gargantuan holes in the crumb structure, and I didn't know if that's because I'm not using enough yeast, or
all right.
Is it because
let me stop you. All right. You're giving me a lot of information, and here's what I would say. I like the path that you're on, and I'm going to say to you what a lot of people have said to me. You got to simplify. And so here's the thing. Don't worry about pre-ferments. Don't worry about yeast amounts. Start with the standard recipes, whether it's John Arena's, and just start, like, if you want, like for John's recipe, I would start by, like, what flour do you like to use?
Well, it's kind of more like, what can I get my hands on?
I get it. What can you get your hands on?
It's luckily, and then I flew to Chicago and bought some Sarasota flour for the all-purpose for tavern.
Okay.
But here in LA, I'm using King Arthur bread flour, and it's like 12.7.
That's very good. So you can use that for all the recipes. I would start with that flour for John Arena's recipe. And if you want big holes, if you want structure, besides the recipe, I would say it's very process oriented, right? So I don't know if you've learned about the different mixing styles. There's the short mix, there's the improved mix, there's the intensive mix. Each of these styles will give you a different crumb structure, right?
Okay.
Same with hydration, 65, 75, 85. Each of those hydrations will give you a different crumb structure. Your fermentation schedule, do you do a long bulk ferment or a short bulk ferment? In the beginner class, we do it 3 different ways. And I don't tell people why. I just say, just pick a scenario, A, B, or C. And we see the next day how they're radically different, even though we use the same recipe. The point being, as Justin says over and over, it's not about the recipe, right? It's about the variables in your equation and learning how they all fit together. And so we start you out in the beginner class teaching you the hand mix. You mix by hand, or do you use a mixer?
Well, up until this year, I've been mixing by hand.
Great.
And this year, because I wanted to develop into some of these other styles, etc., you can't do those by hand. I mean, I don't know how you can.
Some of them are difficult. You're right.
Yeah. So that high hydration, etc. So I've been using a straight ahead KitchenAid with the spiral thing. I don't know if it's a dough hook or what it is, but
here's what I would say. Don't worry about pre-ferments right now at all. Don't even worry about hydration. If I were you, I would take the on-demand intermediate class. It kind of brings everything together. And if you don't leave that class scratching your head and thinking about all the ways that you can kind of perfect each of your recipes, then I suggest you take it again. Because there's a lot of great information there, and it's not really about recipes. It's about 14 steps of baking.
It's about the approach. It's about the approach.
That's what I'm looking for at this point in time, because I've tried a bunch of stuff. I've been at Pizza Expo a couple times. I mean, I think I know what I like that makes good pizza. It's just how do we get there? And I just stumbled across, like the other gentleman that was on a little while ago. I think I stumbled across you guys in maybe on Instagram 2 days ago or something, and went, well, what is this? And I started to look for it, and I started to dig deeper, and I went, what? So
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, but then I kind of didn't know, well, I don't want to take the first class that if I didn't need to. If I need to because of basics.
Don't take the first class. You don't need to. You have plenty of experience.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's just like, I don't want to do that.
So take the intermediate class. It's so valuable. Also, right now, instead of a 7-day term, you get 30 days to take the class after you register, so you can watch it a few times.
Okay.
You can come back to the office hours. You can ask questions, right? And then, for me, here's the thing, that if you take the classes, here's what you can get. You get a new way of looking at all your recipes, right? And when Leo or John Arena or any of these guys tells you do this or do that, I'm sure you've already done all the things they've told you, but what's really valuable is learning how to make subtle changes and understanding in advance how they're going to affect your final product. So if the thing you want is a lighter, airier pizza, or if the thing you want is more open crumb, or if the things you want is something more crispy, right? Then I can teach you ways to do that. But there's more than one way to do it. It's a combination of things, and by changing either the hydration or the mixing style or the temperature your dough comes out at, other things are going to change as well. So you have to understand how everything's connected.
Right. That's kind of Leo opened a school in Chicago called the North American Pizza and Culinary Academy.
Yeah.
And I've been there to check it out, but I haven't been there long enough to take the classes. And kind of what I'm interested in is the theory and all that stuff. It's the W's, all, how does that relate to like the product I'm making?
Sure.
So this sounds like you might be able to provide that information for me.
Yeah, Gary, in the intermediate class, we do a deep dive on the 14 steps of baking, of artisan baking, and that approach. And then we also spend a lot of time trying to figure out, based on our mixer, the friction factor, getting your dough to come out at the correct DDT. So, and then that is Noel's, that's the idea. That's the slow rise. If you can be in control of your fermentato and know your make to bake, basically when you make it to when you want to eat it, and be in control of those things to get the performance you're looking for. So, that would be a good starting point. And then the advanced class, we do a more intensive mix. The hyper mix is what I like to call it, the spaz mix, with a higher hydration dough. So somewhere within those is really going to be beneficial. But, I'd love to see some of your,
is that like Anthony Mangieri or something like that?
No, it's more like Gabriele Bonci or Jim Leahy.
Okay, well, yeah, okay.
High hydration, long fermentation, very careful fermentation, not just long. Really controlling all the elements, choosing your flour and your hydration and everything very carefully. Those guys are two of the masters.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's so great to, I watched the Iacopelli videos, and I did a pizza with him at Expo, etc. But, it's really great because your English is so good.
Thank you. I've been working on
so
it
it's
for
like,
3 years.
Whoa, man. It's, because I'm talking to Italians all the time.
Me too.
Hey,
Me too.
It's like, so.
Or even guys from Chicago. I can't understand half of what Leo says sometimes.
Anyway, so you guys are local.
Yeah, we're just up we're Venice. We're
hoping to get going again. We used to do classes at Surface Restaurant Supply in Century.
I bought
Culver
yeast
City.
there.
There you go.
It's about one of the only places I can buy
You
yeast.
get yeast, you get sap.
Yeah, but
with
also
it.
they have some really great flours, so you should go check out. They have all they buy the 50-pounders of Juice Doughs and a Double Zero from Caputo and a lot of
I
great
got
baking
Double
flours.
Zero from. I bought a case of it from the school.
Very
They
good.
hooked me up, especially as only a Vera Pizza Napolitana.
Very
Well,
good.
So, but when other guys are talking about the mixes and the blends, etc. But you can't buy the product, so maybe that's good to know that maybe surfaces can
They're
provide
good. And
that
they buy
for
the
me.
50-pound bags and they break it up into 1 or 2 pound containers, so it makes
Yeah.
it's better because you're getting professional flour.
Cool. And then I think I noticed that I don't know when you were talking about Dan. Are you talking about Daniel Uditi?
No, well, yeah, we talked about Daniele Uditi from Pizzana here in LA.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about Dan Richer from
Oh, okay.
Razza in Jersey City. Those are the 2
Okay.
bands that
Okay.
we know.
Maybe doll?
So yeah, Justin, we have any? Don't go anywhere, Gary. But we want to make sure we get everybody else's questions answered.
Yeah.
Sure.
Awesome, Gary. Hey, when we're all done with this crazy stuff, we'll get together and have some pizza pie. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Come down. You said Hermosa.
I'll show you. Yeah, I'm in Hermosa.
Great. Good.
Okay.
Good.
I could send you some pictures.
Please do. Please do. It's
Are
always
you on
that.
Instagram? You must be because you found us there. Why don't you post some pictures and tag us so we can check them out?
Everybody put their Instagram handle in the chat just while we're at it. Like, don't be afraid.
How do I do that?
So there should be a little chat button down at the bottom, and just go to Google and type in your Instagram, and then just highlight it and put it in the thing, and then you just got 10 new followers and friends in the pizza game. So, thanks, Gary. Thanks for joining us. You got it.
I will. I thank you guys, and I'll sign up for a class.
Awesome. Dave Capps, come on over. Gonna unmute you. Diggs, how does it go, my friend?
Good.
So Dave, I'm not going to read your question. Why don't you just talk to us about what you're dealing with here?
Yes, so I'm doing kind of a higher hydration pan dough.
Good.
And I'll do a long cold ferment and just leave it in the fridge for like 3-4 days. And I look at the bottom of it and it's all webbed. And I always wonder, should I make that the bottom of the pan or the top? Because I just usually
Great question.
Drop it into the pan, and I don't know. Like, do I want you to go? Do I want to flip you, or do I just, leave you on top? I can never.
I think it really depends what you're going for. So I did a photo shoot on Saturday, and I had a lot of dough, and I actually did it both ways for the shoot. And here's what I noticed. I didn't have time to let it ferment as long as I wanted, maybe only 1 or 2 days, but I did get that web thing happening on the bottom. So when I flipped it over, right, a lot of that dough had a lot more texture in the final product than the more pristine top part of the dough. And so I like that texture that you get when you turn the bottom onto the top and the top on the bottom. But one of the things I notice is that when I use the bottom as the bottom and the top as the top, sometimes I have problems with sticking on the bottom if there's too many holes there. So you got to be real careful of that. And so what I would say is traditionally the bottom is the bottom and the top is the top, but look for happy accidents. Flip it over and see what you like. Not just how it eats and looks, but also how it performs.
So Diggs, can I ask you a question? So what is your proofing? What are you using, round pans or rectangular pans?
I'm using the rectangle Lloyd pan, and I actually started to do. I did a little Crisco on the edge to do the paste thing that we learned from Adam.
It's great.
And then I did oil in the middle, and it worked great. It kind of held my dough.
Yeah.
Thin, and it kind of relaxed and rose a little bit, so it turned out great.
So I love those too. I mean, what I do, Dave, I don't know. Once again, I talk to the virtue of these guys. So what I love is that, like, they also come in ones that are like little rectangles, and I use an 8x10 Lloyd pan, and basically when I shape my dough, they go right in that, but I do the seam side up. So when I just flip that down in, the pan, and that gives me good life on the dough. I don't know, but the eternal question, because if you're looking at it, it looks like, I mean, I know what you're saying. When you look at that under and all those beautiful doughs are there, that web, you're like, wait a second. But I know that there are pros and cons of leaving the dough in the pans for that long with the oil, because it'll suck it up. And then, so, you know, the eternal question. So, but what has your experience been, I guess, is my question.
I usually, and I've been trying to, are you saying, well, I've been curious about starting square and ending square, or starting round and ending round. So I did do the long cold ferment in a square Cambro, and I usually use the round. And I always just leave it on the bottom because I'm happy to get it out of the Cambro. So it drops in, and I let it relax a little bit, and I just kind of dimple it, let it relax, dimple it, and I just let it sit in the pan for a couple hours before I bake it.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about that earlier. A lot of people, and I'm not sure if you're doing a par bake or not, and Noel, you can jump on this, but one of the reasons why that dough pulls back that I've read is that it didn't rest enough at room temp before you bake that par. But our friend earlier was saying that they were letting it go from 8 to 4 p.m. Before, and it was still kind of pulling back. So, what is your schedule usually, Dave?
I will mix. Well, I'm doing sourdough, so I'll start, early, and then I'll have a couple. Let's see. Let me think. It's like 3 hours. I'm doing folds the first 2 hours, and then I'll shape it. And I'm usually just doing one big dough ball, and so I'll shape that, and then I'll let that sit for 4 to 7 hours, depending on when I got to go to bed. And then I'll try to make up that time the next day. Or actually, I never pull it the next day. I'm always doing like 3 days in the fridge at least. And it's usually just like, I'll mix dough a couple days ahead thinking I'm going to want to make this in a few days. And then I try to catch it. If it's the 5th day, I'm usually a little like, oh, I gotta do this tonight. And sometimes I'll par bake it on the 5th day and freeze it. Like John Arena freezes them, I'll freeze it and then bake it again, and it crisps up. And sometimes I'll do like, Bert Katz does the pan where he just does everything at once. The dough goes in, the cheese goes on, the veggies, and just throws the whole thing. And I'll do that with the same dough. It's pretty forgiving, the pan dough.
Yeah, love it.
So are there characteristics that you're looking for that you're not getting, or are you just...
I was just curious about the nature of the dough, like looking at the dough that sits that long and gets all that kind of activity underneath. Where's the best place to put that? And I could see where, like Noel said, that might be the stickier side when it's on the bottom. And I think I have experienced that, which is why the Lloyd pan is great. And I used to Crisco the pan and then oil the pan, like Tony G would say in his book. And I just found that was too much. So now I just do like a light coating of oil, and now I'm going to do the Crisco on the edge, I think. Because if you par bake that and then you take it back out, that's when you can do your Detroit style with the cheddar around the edge, because the dough is pulled back and then it's going to creep down.
There you go. Good one. Sounds like you've been doing a lot of baking, Dave.
I love it.
A little bit.
Good work. Excellent.
Is the season. Awesome.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah, for sure.
Of course.
Thank you, Dave. Keep in touch.
All right. So the last couple questions we've got are from Jason. Jason, I know. Why don't you jump on here? I'm going to ask you to unmute, my friend. And you've got a bunch of, you're using the rock box. I can see that. But why don't you talk to us about what's going on, brother? I can't hear you, though, for some reason. Uh-oh.
Hello, you can hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
But I can hear you.
Test, test, test. Check, check, check. 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2.
What's up, Jason?
Hello, you can hear me now?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah. So this, I'm new in Neapolitan making pizza. So I'm just practicing on my own and watching video from YouTube's how to make it. I'm doing the I'm trying to do the 24 hours fermentation room temp.
That's good.
But at the end of the finished product, my finished product is the dough is the edge of the dough is uncooked and not too much air pocket.
Okay, so possibly your dough is over fermented, and so if you say it's undercooked, do you mean it's not browning properly, or are you talking about
Inside,
is that
inside it's like wet inside.
okay? So it's possible that your dough is over fermented and it's not trapping gas properly, and then it's not cooking properly. So, uh, maybe if you think it's too much time, then cut it back to 18 hours, cut it back to 16 hours, cut it back to 12 hours. Use the same recipe and see if you can isolate whether it's time, right? If the time doesn't change it, then you have to look at how you're mixing it or how you're shaping it. So, for instance, like what is your schedule? How many hours after you mix the dough do you shape the dough?
After 16 hours, I boil it.
Good.
Then
That
rest
sounds
for
perfect.
4 to 6 hours.
Okay, so 16 hours plus 4 hours is 20. 16 hours plus 6 hours is 20. So it's a 20 to 22. Yeah, you're in the right
Yes.
neighborhood. I find that a nice long bulk at room temperature is good, and usually 4 hours, maybe six, depending, is about right. So I think your fermentation schedule is good. How much yeast are you using?
Like in 0.25% fresh yeast.
0.25%, point 0.2
Yeah,
fresh yeast. Probably too much yeast.
too much yeast.
Yeah, yeah, it's too much fresh yeast.
Noel, can I
Yeah,
ask you to move your mic up a little bit, bud?
too
This
much
one.
fresh yeast.
Now good.
So I think you're over fermenting your dough. That's too much yeast. 0.25 is what is more than we use even for New York, and so I would say you want to be at the. I would say for a Neapolitan like that, I would go down to like 0.1 fresh yeast and see how that treats you.
Okay, I will try that one and come back here.
Good.
But this we're trying to use the rock box. How can you give me advice on the rock box?
I mean, the rock box is a very unforgiving piece of equipment. You got to cook it fast. You got to cook it carefully. You have to have good technique. You got to turn it so you don't burn it. You got to make sure that it's nice and heated up so that the bottom cooks through. It's a hard oven to cook in, really hard. And if you don't have your dough like in perfect shape, you're not gonna get a good product out of that thing. You have to have great dough, and then you'll get a pretty good product out of the rock box, maybe even very good. But if your dough is over fermented, or the fermentation schedule isn't right, or the recipe has too much yeast, you're not gonna nail it. So
Mm,
my best guess is that you're over fermented with all that yeast. What do you mix with? Do you use a thermometer when you make dough?
no.
Yeah, you got to use a thermometer for long fermentation.
What's the good temperature for it?
No such thing. You got to come take the intermediate class. That we teach that in the intermediate.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a good temperature because it depends on your flour, your room, all that stuff.
I'm I'm using kabuto.
Not the kind of flour you're using, the temperature of the flour you're using. So
Okay,
you have
okay,
to learn
got it.
about fermentation through temperature control. That's what we teach in the intermediate class.
Okay, thank you.
Or there's lots of good books out there where you can learn it as well.
Also, we do have an on-demand class that'll be here in January. It's about upping your pizza pop-up game, where we have a one of our friends, Lupa Kota, that uses our rock box to do her pizza pop-ups. So, Jace, I would
Oh,
in the new year that would be a good one. We go over. I believe we did a mix with her, and then she showed us how she cooks her dough and kind of her schedule. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Am I tripping? Yeah.
No, you're not tripping.
So
Yeah,
that
really
would
good
be a
one.
good.
I would say that he should take an intermediate class to kind of tie it all together. That would be my best wishes for him, because it sounds like he's trying to do a lot of intermediate and advanced stuff. And if you're not controlling your fermentation through temperature, you're gonna have a lot of bad days.
Yeah, it's not always, it's not about the recipe, Jason. We've said it a long time, a bunch. It's about the process and getting that process down and having the temperatures right so you're in control. So you're not allowing the dough to dictate. So
Jason, are you doing this for fun or are you doing it professionally?
I'm doing it professionally. Actually, in 6 months, I only have 6 months. We will open the
Get yourself a
restaurant.
thermometer and take the
I
intermediate class in that order. Thermometer first.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will try it, sir.
You're asking good questions, though. Thank you.
Thank
Awesome.
You're welcome.
Cool, Jace. Cool.
Who else out there? Don't be shy, anybody.
I think Gary had
We got
some
about
questions.
20
Gary,
minutes left.
Gary, did you want to
Good.
unmute?
Good. What's up, Gary?
So,
what's going on, gentlemen? Good evening.
What's going on with you, sir?
good evening, my friend.
Just joining this. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Justin, you're hilarious, man. You crack me up, dude.
That's me up too. So
I gotta
funny.
hang out with you one day.
This is not
dude.
Justin.
Come on,
does
dude.
that? Can we get a link to your Christmas video on the chat?
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah,
you,
we'll
you
put
crack
that up.
me. You crack me up.
No,
Oh,
don't say
good,
yeah
dude.
and not put it
Yeah.
in. Can you put it in, please? I want a
My-
link. You guys,
my-
wait till you see what Justin did in his Christmas jammies yesterday.
All right. Let's ask.
Send it to me on Instagram. I'm gonna message you. You gotta get me that. It's
Yeah.
hysterical.
He's putting it right in the chat right now, aren't you,
Yeah.
Justin?
Yes.
Do it.
Everybody else is putting their Instagram.
Do it.
It's so funny. He had a Christmas tantrum
so-
with jammies. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So real quick, in regards to the Poolish, that was the Vito recipe. So I apologize because I was like all anxious and typing super quickly. Like
It's okay.
my passion has always been Neapolitano pizza.
Mm-hmm.
That I have a love for, but I grew up East Coast New York pizza since I was a kid. Brooklyn, Jersey, Philly, like right I'm outside of Philly. Anyway, I did the Poolish Vito style.
Yep.
Had great success with it. Like it so far was the best though that I've experienced in that platform.
Yep.
So what I was trying to clarify is the buckwheat honey was some Russian honey my mom gave me. That's all I had on hand to use that. I heard you say don't use that. Got it.
Not in your Poolish, in your dough.
Okay. So I used it in the Poolish and then I added the water, the flour, the salt, all the remaining ingredients. And then now it's been in the fridge for tomorrow will be 70.
That's a long time. That's a long time.
And it proved very nicely. And I'm like, kind of like, let's see what happens.
You're taking a lot of liberties. A Poolish never goes 72 hours. A dough can go 72 hours, but not a Poolish.
No, I'm sorry. More specific, the dough is in the
fridge,
and that's 72 hours.
So here's the thing: you don't traditionally use a Poolish if you're going to ferment your dough for 72 hours.
Okay.
You traditionally use a Poolish if on a Monday you're going to make the Poolish, and on a Tuesday you're going to make dough and also bake it. That's when you would use a Poolish.
Okay.
So it adds pre-ferment or pre-fermented flour to what would otherwise be an unfermented flour. And so if you're gonna use 72 hours fermentation time, by most traditional standards, you don't need any Poolish. Can you put it in? Sure. Does Justin put it in? Yeah. Does he make awesome pizza? Of course. But he's breaking rules, and I don't want you to break the rules. I want you to, Justin, what's the name of that guy in Philly? Who's that guy Danny? He's got that.
Danny's
awesome
my dude.
Yeah, right,
Danny's my man from Angelo.
So Danny uses a Poolish. He uses it in his bread. I'm not sure what he does in his pan pizza, but it's that the day that the night before he makes the Poolish, that next day he makes the dough, and at lunch or dinner, that's when that's coming out, right? And so he's using artisan baking principles, right? Taking bread principles and applying them to pizza. That's what I want you to do.
Okay, I'm on it because to me, his like when you have his bread,
right?
And if you haven't had it, like can't wait till you guys come and try it. But like no disrespect, like he said in the interview to his in-laws, Sarcone's is incredible. I love it, but his bread, it smokes it. It smokes them.
Of course it does. Of course it does.
It's incredible. And then his pizza, like my wife is Italian, pizza day and night, right? And then she had that, we had it together, and she was like, "This is the best freaking pizza I've ever had." Like,
I'll bet.
He smokes Padilla, smokes it. He's the king in Philly, as far as I'm
definitely the king in Philly.
Best pizza, best bread. Like,
I can't wait.
Killing it. But send some good vibes his way because he had like a little flood fire the other day.
I heard that.
Yeah,
so we had a fire, and then the alarm, and then the sprinklers went on, and who knows what's going on.
COVID employee had to close for a week. Cleaned the shop completely. Had brand new like grill put in recently, and then he had a flood fire. Like clean night and day. It was like sparkling clean. Came in the morning, and I'm like, "What the hell happened?" Just through his Instagram seeing this, I was like, "Man, I'm so sorry. Just bad luck."
Look, yeah, for sure.
But I'm on that path. If you're guiding me there, I'm on it. And then so many takeaways. Thank you so much on like
You're
the
welcome.
video
Thanks
on
for
demand.
joining us. These holidays are good because the classes that get smaller and we get to, have more quality time with y'all. So that's good.
Well, QT, that's what we like to call it.
Yeah, man, it was really, really helpful. Just even in the breakdown of the active yeast versus the dry yeast, like
Sure.
little fun tip. I was like, hey, return and learn on that. But I'm definitely going to follow that path, and with your guidance and coaching.
Yeah, just shorten your fermentation if you're going to use pre-ferments. Otherwise, your entire dough after 72 hours is pre-fermented. It's perfectly fermented. You don't need pre-ferment. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Awesome, Gary. Thanks for hanging. Yeah, and I went ahead and put my Instagram in there, so if anybody wants to see me bitch about having enough figgy pudding, I mean, it was the whole "We wish you a Merry Christmas." Like that song just devolves into basically jerks. Like, bring us figgy pudding, bring it right now. We're not going to go anywhere till we get some. Like we're not this is the season of like being awesome, and then a bunch of people that are just jerks in your house. So we're not going anywhere till we get the figgy pudding. Bring it right now. Come on. Anyway,
when did you decide to make that video, Justin?
I cracked a couple Coors Lights, maybe a couple, Bud Lights, maybe a couple Miller Lights.
Nice.
It just depends.
So wait, same night that you started singing it,
this is my new mix. I do like half a Coors Light, half a Miller Light. So I'm a mixologist. You are a mixologist. I mean, come on.
You got to try a Dogfish Head at 60 and a 90.
Yeah.
Those, and then you got a 75.
Oh, nice.
Oh, Dogfish
I like your mask, Gary.
I used to drink like a lot of beer, and I have like, hey, listen, man, people say that you can't cellar beer. I've cellared beer. I've aged the Pilsner for 5 years, and it still had a head.
Nice.
You guys want beers? You can have them. I don't even want them.
Unfortunately, I'm a quantity over quality guy, and the way I drink is just goes like so I have a tendency to go into lower alcohol beers because it'll get a little too much. But
excellent.
Awesome. All right. Well, I feel like we've done a good job. There doesn't seem to be anything else in the Q&A unless anybody, Danny, Aaron, Dave, Terry, Gary, if you guys want to raise your hand. Yeah, Dave, come on back. Come on.
So I signed up for the on-demand advanced 1 class, and I wondered, where do I download the sheets for that? Should I email?
It should have already arrived with your confirmation email. I had a few emails the last couple of days where people said they didn't get those, and though that was a result of not completing the registration process. So did you ever get an email from us confirming that you had?
Yeah, and I started to watch the intro, and so I logged in. I think I'm registered and everything.
Okay, so do me a favor. Whatever, you should have gotten probably an email from PayPal, and also you should have gotten the confirmation from Slow Rise Pizza. If you will email me info@slowrisepizza, or if you're doing on-demand classes at Slow Rise Pizza, if you will forward me both of those emails, I'll track them back. So unfortunately, it's a 2-step process. First, you check in with PayPal, and then you check in with us. And then once you do that, we send you everything. And it's been seamless for the better part of 6 months. But for some reason lately, people have been, maybe it's just the holidays and people they want to get on with it, and they're skipping the last part of the process. So in the last 2 days, I've had like 6 people saying, I didn't get the paperwork. So I'm like, all right, let's check it out. So last night I had my web company go through all the emails, and we figured out the people, maybe they're just having a drink while they're registering. That's what I like to do. I like to drink and buy stuff. What about you, Justin?
Don't you?
Yeah, so you should have gotten that stuff, Dave. So send me whatever you received, and if for some reason the link is not there, I'll hook you up. But you have actually been able to start watching the classes, right?
Watch.
All right. So at the very bottom of the email you receive, it says to click here, HERE, and it's a blue hyperlink, and that's where you get the recipe. And it makes the most sense to watch the class with the recipe in front of you.
That's what I thought. Let me find this first.
Yeah, please.
Cool.
But if for some reason something happened, I will send it to you myself.
Okay, great. Thanks, Noel.
Yeah, but Dave, that's going to be a great. that's the advanced class. That's going to be great because we're all about the pre-ferments and the sourdoughs and stuff, and I know that you integrate those into your recipes. So
Yeah,
we use that hyper mix. We get down on it, mix for like a half an hour at 8 speed. It's great.
I'm spoiled with a diving arm mixer. So
right.
Do a hyper mix with a diving arm?
It depends. If it has a second speed, you can. What you have to do is something called double fermentation, where you only add maybe 70 or 80% of the water at the beginning.
Double hydration, right? Double hydration.
Yep, double hydration, and then you drizzle in the water like you would olive oil for over the course of maybe 5 minutes, and you very slowly add it. And that's the way I've done it in diving arm mixers, and it works great. All right. Depending on the kind of flour you're using, you might want to dial down the 85% to only 80. Like if you're using soft American flour or you're using like Italian flour, even the Caputo 00, it's supposed to be 12 and 3/4%. Doesn't really need 85%. You're good with 78 or 80. All right. Good job, Dave. Thank you for your support.
Aaron, Terry, we'll come to you in a second, but Aaron had his hand up first. We'll get you next, bud.
Thank you, Justin.
Aaron, what's up, my dog? Did I just kick Aaron off?
Let's see.
I hear him. Hi, Aaron.
There he is.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing good. How you doing? How's Pittsburgh?
Kidding me? Look at this. Look at this back.
We had a little snow, so it's a little cold now. We had nice weather, but now we're back to normal Pittsburgh weather. So, yeah, I miss my California weather.
We all do.
Quick question. So, I actually did bar style pizza a couple times since we've been with Adam. It's a wonderful, recipe and experience.
Yep.
Actually, I feel like just taking more steps too with thin style pizzas and doing something with a pan instead of right on a steel or a stone, something like that. And I actually did Neapolitan 2.0 again, so I baked some tonight.
Good.
But I'm thinking about going back to my more of a pan. Roman style, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering, I haven't really ventured back towards your advanced one. I have this Nuvola with what we did with McKelly. And so I'm wondering, any suggestions? I want to dive back into this week and look over the next, week or so with the holidays, go back towards a pan and a thicker pizza.
Okay.
Having a Nuvola, and I have King Arthur bread. I have some all-purpose. I have some stuff to work with, but I don't know. And I was thinking about maybe even loading up that advanced class. Like, any suggestions for like me going back into it and really submersing myself into it the next
Here's
year?
what I would say. If you want to use like King Arthur bread flour, then 85% hydration is right.
Yep.
If you want to go Nuvola, I would say 80% hydration is right.
Yep.
If I go Nuvola, I like to add a little bit of malt. I like to add between 0.5% and 1% of non-diastatic malt for browning, and diastatic malt if you also want additional like enzymatic activity, more flavor, right, in your dough.
I have the malt from the focaccia class.
Perfect. So I think that was probably diastatic malt. So I would go between 0.5% and 1%, so you get a little more browning. Let's see. The thing that I like to do, depending on how much.
No, can I just ask you a question real quick? When using the malt, that shortens a little bit of the span on when it's ready to perform. Is that correct?
Only if you're using diastatic malt, and only if you don't control your fermentation. If you keep your temperature a few degrees lower, and you control the fermentation, it doesn't change anything. It just makes the dough more active. And if you don't account for it by using colder water or maybe a little less time, then you could lose control because it'll be more active. But that's why I usually recommend non-diastatic malt, because that's what they use in American bread flour for browning. Non-diastatic, no activity, don't have to change anything.
Okay.
Good question, Justin. Let's see, Aaron, other from that, depending on what style of pizza or bread you want to make, I like a day to 2 days in bulk and at least 1 day in secondary fermentation, so the dough gets nice and relaxed, right? We had a question earlier about dough not reaching the edges of the pan and pulling back.
Yep.
So you got to be really careful if you're going to do like a hyper mix and a long fermentation, especially in bulk. You want to make sure you give your dough enough time to relax. So there's so many little variations and there's so many little nuances to nailing that. You know, the Americans, we tend to overdo it on the balling and the pre-shaping and all that stuff. And so you need to let that dough relax for a good 24 hours. The Italians are way more gentle. Many of them have never heard of a pre-shape. They don't want the structure. They want it to basically, they bulk ferment. They barely even shape super gently. And so they're not looking for a lot of surface tension and a lot of structure. They get beautiful extensibility out of like the whole less is more ethos, if you will. So
Okay.
you gotta find your rhythm.
So I'm gonna try that. Yeah, I'm definitely thinking I'm gonna go back that direction. And if you do one on the 28th next week, then I may have some questions, and or, the following whenever we get back at it, I'll probably have some more questions in that line. So thank you.
I'm on back. Yeah, Justin and I might take next Monday off. It's one of those.
No problem. Yeah.
One of those times a year where we can get away with it.
Yes.
Right, Justin?
Enjoy.
It's the most wonderful time of the
I laughed at your video and watched it about 10 times in a row. It's really funny. So.
Really funny. Justin, amazing.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate everything you do. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thanks. We appreciate
Thanks
you.
for spending so much time with us, Aaron.
Of course.
Yeah.
Hope I can get out to Pittsburgh one day.
I know. We're gonna eat a lot of pizza.
You're gonna.
You're gonna have to take us around town. I'm looking forward to it. So. All right, Terry, I'm going to ask you to unmute. I know you had your hand up, my friend.
Where is Terry? Come on, Terry. What's going on?
That's my T-Dog.
All right. I think I unmuted there.
Good job. What's happening?
All right. Well, I just wanted to say hello. I'm new to the group here. My wife actually researched all of this and signed me up for tonight. She said,
nice.
What's her name? Hello?
Barbara.
Barb.
She's
Hey, Barb.
Barbara, how did you find us, may I ask?
You know what? We live in Scottsdale, and Chris Bianco, and I see his Instagram page, and he gave you a shout out.
He did.
And so it just kind of went from there.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
We always say, I mean, we use his words often. You burn, you learn, and that's one of our things. You make and bake, and you burn and learn, and those are the immortal words of Bianco. So,
yeah, and Barb signed me up. She's also bought me for Christmas one of the
beginning
class on demand.
Good.
So I'll be taking that in the next week or so when I sit down and have
Very
some time.
good. So that's a 2-part class. We're gonna spend. You can take the part 1 on a Friday and then part 2 on a Saturday or a Sunday, right?
On that, since knowing that's a 2-part class. But getting back into the pizza area, at our last house, I had built a wood-fired pizza oven outside in our backyard.
Yep.
And so I got into making pizzas, a lot of them. But I didn't keep any records or what I did or how I did. And sometimes it came out really good, sometimes it didn't come out so good. I use Chris Bianco's recipe religiously.
Good.
We're here, we get to go down to Pizzeria Bianco, eat his pizza, great stuff. So that's what I used. We moved, and then I didn't have a pizza oven anymore.
Yeah.
Recently, I got permission from the CEO of finances here to allow me to build again. So I've got a new pizza oven. I've built the base, I've built the dome, and it's ready to go in. And I've also got in a gas-fired burner this time, so that I can do gas and wood.
That's the best.
In the oven. So she's getting me started to try and get me back into doing some professional style, although it's just for fun. I was a former craft brewer for 7 years, so I'm not unfamiliar with the nuances of keeping good records. I just never did it with the pizza. I had to do it with the beer, otherwise it would turn out terrible.
Yes, you did.
But living here in this area, we get to use the oven quite a bit, and we're looking forward to doing it again. And this is a great opportunity for me to enhance the skills with you guys, and I certainly appreciate what you've done. And she started it all for me, so you'll be seeing more of me.
That's good.
Great there.
So, in terms of record keeping, what we stress in the beginner class is just to keep track of time, right? So, when you start mixing your dough, you write down what time it is, right? When you're done mixing your dough, you write down what time it is. When you are stretching and folding, you write down what time it is. When you ball your dough, you write down what time it is. And so, by the end of the beginner class, you should be well acquainted with the concept of time. And then in the intermediate class, we drill down into temperature. And between time and temperature is the magic. I always say that brewers make the best bakers. I also say that musicians make the best bakers as well. I say a lot of things in a lot of classes, depending. But no, here's the thing. Some of my best friends are brewers, literally, and they have such a good understanding of fermentation, right? And all of the factors that are affecting color and aroma and flavor, and so you probably have a better understanding of fermentation even if you're a home brewer, than most professional pizza makers. And I'm totally serious.
I was a professional craft brewer for 7 years.
There you go. And so, yeah, especially if you're a professional. Now, another thing, don't belittle the fact that you are doing professional style in a home oven. Here's the advantage you have. If you're only doing 6 pizzas or 4 pizzas in a night, you have an advantage over the professionals who are doing 400 or 500. And maybe on a good night, 350 of them are really good. What about the other 50? The best pizza makers in the country will tell you, out of 400 pizzas, I'm lucky if 375 are good or 350. The best guys I know have a big trash can next to their oven so they can throw away the bad. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Pizzas now than I did before, because my wife would only let me eat so much of it. We'd have to have pizza parties with friends over. Not so much right now. So I told my neighbors I'm doing this and said, be prepared to get a pizza delivered on your doorstep.
Sounds good.
So I can practice.
Can I ask what kind of flour you're using?
Right now, King Arthur.
Which one?
The bread flour.
Very good. And how about water? You got some nice filtered water?
Actually, here I haven't been doing much because we didn't have the oven and I didn't want to cook it just in the regular home oven. So I haven't made much dough in the last, I'd say, 2 years. So I'm just going to get back into it.
When you say,
go ahead.
Refrigerator with the filter on there, is that, or should we get?
That's good. No, just you can either, if your filter is good, you should be fine. I like to err on the side of caution, and I'll draw water out of the tap or out of the filter even and let it sit uncovered for 24 hours. This way, if you have an issue like we do in LA with chlorine, that will not be an issue because it evaporates. Let me ask you another question. What has the temperature been like in Arizona lately?
Yeah, lately, it's been very good.
How good? Give me a temperature.
Well, today was 74, 75.
Okay. So let me just, I know what we're not going to, you're more advanced than your average beginner. So let me give you a few tips. All right. If your flour temperature is going to be in the mid 70s, and if your room temperature is going to be in the mid 60s, here's what I would do. In a batch of dough that calls for 650 grams of water, which is a full batch, I would take half of that out of the fridge and half of it at room temp and combine them together. And without even knowing the math on the temperatures, you will most likely end up with a dough that's not over fermented.
Okay.
But really important. And then if you want to, you could go online and find out how to control your dough with temperature. But it's really important because in that beginner recipe, there's a good deal of yeast in that dough. And so if you're using warm water, relatively warm 75, you have a warm room temperature, right? And also your flour is warm. If that dough sits out for 1 or 2 hours, it might get a little bit sticky, hard to work with. The flavor will be good, but it sounds like you've had some good experience. So a little cold water goes a long way. Put it that way, all right?
Very good. Thank
you.
And
then do me a favor. When you're making your pizza, keep track of the temperature. I know we don't talk about temperature too much in the beginner class, but if you ever decide to progress, and as Justin says, you make the best pizza of your life one day, you want to be able to go back and be like, all right, my flour temperature was 72, the air temperature was 74, my water temperature was 63. When I was done mixing, the temperature of the dough was 74, right? When I took it out the next morning, it was 41, and then it went up to like 62. These things are really important because you'll start to see patterns, and you'll start to see where sometimes warmer dough is good, sometimes warmer dough is bad. Oh, where'd he go? Oh, somebody else left. So also right now it's winter time, and so you generally want to use colder water, however, warmer water. But in Arizona, I wouldn't call that winter temperature, would you?
Well, we're a little pop up right now. We've been in the 60s, really.
Yeah,
like
that sounds about right.
Mid 60s. So yeah.
Good. Anyway, just a tip. In the beginner class, depending on, I think Justin, I think that beginner class was recorded last July, right? So it was probably pretty warm, and so you'll see that I was probably using some cold water as well.
Well, it probably
Can I ask a
won't
quick question?
in the summer when it's 115.
115, you're going to want to use like 33 degree water.
We'll be in
For real.
We'll be in San Diego at that point.
That sounds nice. That sounds very nice.
Can I ask
All
one
right,
quick
guys.
question?
Well, thanks for finding us, and thanks for coming and joining us.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys.
Who said wants to ask another
It was
quick
Lawrence.
question?
It was Lawrence. You guys have my video off, but I just wanted to ask because he's been talking a lot about temperature.
Yeah.
And if I'm mixing by hand, Noel, and
Yep.
I'm using the instant dry yeast, and my flour's at room temp, and I've been using like 100-degree water. Is that just way too warm?
It's probably too warm.
So
A lot of
90,
people. No, I mean, remind me what's your level of experience in pizza making?
I mean, I've been making a fair bit, but I was.
Have you ever used a thermometer when you bake?
Am I using it? A thermometer on the dough? No.
Okay, that's something you're going to want to do. And so here's what I would say. Before I tell you what temperature your water should be or anything else, make a dough, record your flour temperature, record your water temperature, record your room temperature, record your dough temperature throughout the course of a day or two. And then next time we talk, then we can really have a discussion about temperature. Because if you don't know all the temperatures, I can't say you should use this water temperature, or I can't tell you about air or flour temperature unless I know everything. And you can't make an informed decision either. So start recording stuff and you'll see. You'll start to see patterns, and whether they're going in the right direction or the wrong direction. You can use water temperature to control your fermentation and even things out. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, as the saying goes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I think it goes winter, spring, summer, or fall. All you have to do is make pizza, right? That's what they say.
Justin, what is that mask? Is that like Mickey?
So it's like Santa Claus, right? It's like, look.
It is Santa. I mean,
I just need
there's a lot
beard.
going on there. There's a lot
I have a beard. It's the double hat and everything. So
I like it. I like it.
You know, that's how we do. Well, guys, it is almost 10 after 7. I think that we've spent some QT. Seems like all our questions are answered.
Excellent.
Noel, you want to say anything to our friends, our pizza friends, our family in Pizza Pie?
Well, I want to say happy December 21, everyone. I want to say thank you for supporting us. I want to say stay safe. It's kind of crazy out there. So hopefully we're all doing the right thing and staying indoors and distancing and masking when necessary. And hopefully we'll all have a safe and healthy holiday and a beautiful 2021. Justin and I have had a great year. Not what we expected at all, but we've built like a really fun, kind of tight-knit community. Thanks to all of you who've been supporting us and attending our classes and our free office hours. It's a lot of fun for us. Lately the attendance has been down, but we really like it because we get a chance to get to know you all and talk to you all. Sometimes these big office hours we don't get a chance until the end to let you guys come on and see you all. It's kind of weird sometimes when you see that you're talking to 50 or 75 or 120 people, but you don't get to see them. So I only get to look at Justin, which is fun. I like to talk. I like to look at Justin, but I also
lucky duck.
Everybody
duck,
else's
as far
faces
as I'm
too.
concerned.
So thank you again. Happy holidays to everybody. If I don't see you before the end of the year, Happy New Year, and let's come back again and make some awesome pizza in the new year. Justin, take us out, please.
You guys know the dealio. We talk about the phyllo dough, and that's not puff pastry. That's the philosophy of dough. And we get into things like the fondue dough, and that's not, we're talking about the foundation, right? The foundation that we can build on. So if you spend some QT with us, thank you all so very much for spending that time with us. Come back and see us in 2021. Hopefully we will be able to spend some, some QT with people that we give a ship about in real life. It won't just be on Zoom. So you know the deal. As 2020 winds down, please, please, please go break bread with people that you give a ship about, even if it's just on Zoom. You know the dealio, ladies and germs. Stay safe, stay strong, belong with one another, the opposite of being short, because, hey, we all belong here together. And please, 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 you know what we say. Pizza, always, even pineapple, and always pizza. With love, everybody. Merry, merry, happy, happy. Go out there. Let's do it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
and
Justin.
gals. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks,
Thank you,
Ethan.
guys.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
See ya,
Happy
Aaron.
holidays,
Happy
everybody.
holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. All that good stuff, buddy. Terry, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Very nice, Justin. Very nice.